Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Business taxes. Was stressing about all the time and all the money you spent on your taxes.
This is my bill?
Now Business Taxes is a TurboTax small business expert who does your taxes for you and offers year-round advice at no additional cost, so you can keep more money in your business. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on turbotax.com/business. Only available with TurboTax Live full service.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Hey, Chicago. What do you say? Cubs gonna win today.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise podcast. We're going to talk about the Cub convention, and then we're going to talk about, I don't know if you guys heard this, the Bears have a new coach.
What?
Yeah. So joining me is Praz and Oleg. Guys,
hello.
Oleg waving, so it never gets old. So the 38th Cub convention, not the 38th annual, because they missed 2 years.
Right.
But the 38th Cub convention has come and gone. There wasn't a dry eye in the house because Praz was there and everyone was so excited to see him.
Especially a man with 609 career home runs was very excited to see me.
So you've been to a convention before, I would guess.
Yes, I used to go damn near every year from like 05 until like 2016 or 17.
Oh, you were there when we were there.
Yeah, probably, right?
Well, I was much younger and probably couldn't get into shitty OKs at that point.
Oh. Yeah, they let anybody in.
Yeah, right. I don't know.
But did you do anything fun?
Oh, I did plenty fun. If nobody has seen yet on my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky profile picture, was lucky enough to get a selfie with none other than Cubs all-time home run leader and, finally making his triumphant return to the Cub convention, Sammy Sosa.
How?
Oh, yeah, that picture. Yeah.
How do I put this delicately? How weird does Sammy look?
Very, very different from when I last saw him in person. We'll say that. But he's still the charismatic guy that's trying to pump up the crowd and everything like that. Much lighter than I remember him, but that had come to. We'd come to expect that from the pictures we had seen over the years of him.
He, in that, when he was on with Ian Happ on the compound, they were showing, he was sitting there in front of that big screen and they were showing some of his iconic home runs. And I just wondered what he thinks when he looks at himself.
Right.
He's like, I was tan back then. Yeah, that's what it was, Sammy. You were tan back then.
Really makes you think, no one in the media thought to bring that up at all.
I don't know. How do you do that?
Yeah, what do you?
For sure.
Big Wayne Newton fan, are you, Sammy? That's what I think he looks like. A little bit like Wayne Newton. But it doesn't matter. He seems happy and healthy, and I knew he would. He's enjoyed the hell out of that weekend. That's like,
Absolutely.
there is no more perfect place for Sammy than in a large place where everyone adores him. Some people get embarrassed by that. No, Sammy, not so much.
I think most people, once they can get past the embarrassment, probably love being in a place where everyone adores you. I don't know what that's like, but
I mean, I joked, but it's kind of close. Tim Stoddard comes back every year for the Cub Convention. He pitched 1 year for the Cubs.
Yep.
One. I mean, it was 1984, but it's like, Tim, really? Do you need a free?
Well,
you do like your winter vacation? You go to Chicago for 2 days?
You do have to factor in that, he is from nearby East Chicago, Indiana. I think the entire population of East Chicago, Indiana was in that ballroom when they introduced him as well.
Isn't that the key part of that factoid that Cole Wright likes to drop? That there's only 2 players who've ever played in a World Series and a Final Four.
Yep. And they're both from the same hometown.
They're both former Cubs, but he leaves out the fact that what are the odds that they're also from the exact same hometown? It's Tim Stoddard and Kenny Lofton.
Yeah. And both played for both Chicago teams, too.
Yeah. And both missed playing in a World Series with the Cubs under tragic circumstances.
By one more win would have gotten them there, yeah.
So I know, this is probably bad podcasting, but Andy, have you seen the picture that Praz is talking about? That's his...
of him and there's 2 pictures. There's one of him and Sammy, and there's another one that he sent me.
Oh, I did not send this one to you, Oleg.
With another notable Cub legend.
Is it Cindy Sandberg?
Was Cindy there? Do you want to tell him what that picture is of? Because I really appreciated it.
So, and I'll send this to you if you want, Oleg. And
yeah, I do want.
I was. This was during the aforementioned Ian Happ Compound podcast with Sammy. I happened to notice that in the same room at the time, toward the back, was one Mr. Crane Kenny talking to a couple fans. And I don't think anyone on this podcast is really all that big of a fan of Crane Kenny. So as a salute to represent all of us here on this podcast, I took a picture of myself giving Crane Kenny the finger. Yep. And hopefully that becomes the cover art for this picture.
I will say this about Crane Kenny. He really is, I think, a nice man. He's probably incompetent.
I don't think he's
no.
You got one of those things right, Oleg. You definitely got one of those things right.
Our old sports writer buddies would disagree with Crane being a nice man. They have stories, and players through the ages have hated him.
Oh, all right, fair enough. Well, fuck that guy.
Yeah, he's exactly. What is it? He's one of those guys who likes to hang out in the locker room like he's on the team. Basically,
he would just bring people into the locker room to show off that he could bring them into the locker room 10 minutes before a game would start.
Oh,
he's living the exact dream that Drake LaRoche had as a kid.
Except he's been doing it.
That's Woody Johnson vibes.
Yeah. He's been doing it for 30 years? He's been around forever. He's
holy cow. How?
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it was nice. I wrote about this ad nauseum, so people are like, yeah, we know, we read it. But I wondered how the Cubs were going to do it, right? Do you have Sammy come out last? The way they did it, the way they did the introductions when they introduced everybody was perfect. But then and it was the worst kept secret in Chicago, because the fact that he is going into the utility tunnel of fame, you knew they were going to have to bring him out at the beginning with Tom. And that was the whole reason for the awkward apology and the Cubs accepting it, because they had to get that out of the way because he's going in this year. So they do the first one, and Tom is enjoying the fact that because he's introducing Sammy, he's not being booed. So that was good. But then Sammy doesn't come out right away, and Tom's just kind of standing there. And then Sammy comes flying out and runs around the stage like a maniac. And Tom looked so uncomfortable. It was the greatest thing ever. And I felt like you could feel his little like soul snap at some point when he realized, oh, he's really back. Like, we're going to have to deal with Sammy now. Like, we fucked this up by making it a big deal for 20 years that he wasn't around, 15 of them on ours. Now that he's back, it's a big deal. And every time he doesn't come to something, we're going to get shit if we didn't invite Sammy. And now we're getting the full Sammy all the time. And I love it.
I could not be happier.
And then they brought him out the second time, and he started doing laps.
Yeah.
Like, he wouldn't stop. He just kept going around and around. And
yeah.
But I did like it. So they introduced them. They like tier the introductions. Like the Paul Bacco goes first. Worst. All right, who's the worst one here? Go. All right, Bacco goes first.
At that exact moment, too, I shouted out, Gabor!
Yeah, Gabor.
Yes.
So, like, nondescript old players go first.
Okay.
Then the prospects. Okay. Then the current team. Then the
Legends.
Cubs, the utility tunnel of famers come out.
Okay.
And then the Hall of Famers. So that allows them to have Sammy make his second entrance and get the thing, but then allow Ryan to go last. So that, because that was a big deal, obviously, for everybody to see Ryan again. But I love the fact that Ryan got so caught up in the moment, I'm glad he did, that he hugged Sammy. And I don't think he did it on purpose. I feel like he turned around and Sammy's there with his arms out and he hugs him and he's like, oh my God, I'm hugging Sammy Sosa. Fuck.
Yeah, I'm hugging that guy I motherfucked my entire Hall of Fame speech.
It was great. That's why I posted under it. To me, it was the scene at the end of Major League when Roger Dorn goes over to Rick and Rick, it's like, oh no. And he hugs him and then he punches him and then he picks him up and he hugs him again. That was kind of what I thought was going to happen.
That's amazing. That's so cool. Oh, man.
It's Jody Davis's fault. Because as Ryan was coming down the line, Jody grabbed him and hugged him. And that started the hugs. Then Rick Sutcliffe hugged him. And then he started hugging. And then because of the way they did it, he was going to sit next to Sammy. So he's standing right there. And Sammy literally just has the arms out like, all right, bring it in, big boy. And Ryan did. He had no idea at the beginning who he was hugging.
Oh.
It was great. So
I will say it was a pleasant surprise to see him there, and with all the health issues he's got going on. I always kind of was under the impression ever since Sammy was invited back that like it was because Ryan wouldn't be there. But nice that they had that moment, even if it wasn't exactly intentional.
I mean, clearly Sammy doesn't hate Ryan Sandberg.
No, it's
I don't think he does.
Yeah, right.
No, it just has Ryan just has to like
grin and bear it.
Yes, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, you feel bad for Ryan for a lot of reasons. He looks good. Like right now his hair's back as much of it as he has, but he's not. I mean, that's the worst part.
Did he go back for another?
I don't think he got replugged. That's what you're asking.
That's how I was asking.
Oh, he's like, people know I've had some medical procedures, but I think it looks pretty good, huh? Seed in the front. Oh, that's not what we thought, Ryan. We didn't think that's what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I do think though that Hap needs to go back. He needs a reseeding because there's a lot of forehead going on with Ian Happ.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he doesn't have the endorsement anymore, so he probably doesn't care. But it didn't take.
All right. You have to. I wonder if you have to go back for like maintenance work.
I don't know what restore is, right? Like, is it just where they take hair from like the back of your head where you have it and plug it? I don't know what they do. I don't know. There's different hair systems. I don't know. I thought Wayne Messmer's tooth looks good though. So
Wayne was looking good. By all accounts, I didn't stay fairly long for Saturday night because I had a prior engagement. But according to one person I know who attended Cubs Bingo, which he always hosts, he was he was hitting the sauce pretty hard that night.
Wayne?
Yes.
I'd have if you wanted me to MC Cub Bingo, I would also have to be hammered.
Yes.
I don't blame him.
I'm not sure there's any other way to do it.
I thought it was great that then when I started watching this stuff on Saturday, the very first question at the very first session was asked by Crawley. It's amazing that dude somehow always ends up first, but there he was.
What did he ask?
He asked Jed why they fired all the scouts.
Oh, that's a good question.
They always ask real questions, so it's nice to see him when he pops up. But that's how I knew him, was from all those years going to the convention. There was always this weirdo with his name on he had a different Cub jersey every time, and he had his name. I had Crawley on the back, which isn't even his name; it's a nickname.
Right.
And he was always the first one to ask a question. It did not matter what session you went to. You could go to 2 in a row, and he somehow was first at both of them. That's why I joke that he takes the dining room chair and just sticks it in front of the microphone like in October and holds his space. So
calling dibs. Yeah.
What was Jed's answer?
Carter took that one.
Oh,
yeah. Carter he likes to talk. He never says anything. He's a functional idiot, but maybe not even functional. He says that because there's so many like cameras in all the minor league parks now, and all the batted ball data and pitch ball data they get, that they don't need scouts there anymore. They get all the data they need. And the only place they send them now is to the places that don't have it, like the Arizona Complex League and the Dominican League. And it's bullshit, right? Like you don't need one or the other. Don't you still need like a person there? If you feel like you're not getting anything from the scouts, go find better scouts. Don't not have them at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Dodgers and the Rays have both. They don't cut back. And amazing. They're good all the time. I wonder why that is. So, yeah, that was his Carter's buzzword. He always has one. 2 years ago, he kept saying which hat he was going to put on. Well, we have to put on our analytics hat to think about that. We have to put on. It's like, what? This was, what are we solving for?
God.
Okay.
He kept saying, got to solve for over and over and over again. It's like, just shut up, you weirdo.
To be fair, I talk about that at work all the time. What are we solving for? What's the problem we're solving?
Yeah.
I ask that all the time.
That's like Matt Nagy with the, we got to find out the why.
Find out the whys.
We got to find out the why. Yeah. Why did they hire you?
That's a good, that's a good question. You just have to know the answer.
Yeah.
You have to be able to comprehend the answer you got.
Yeah. And some, what did the little kid ask? They put
that
Jed
I did not
spot.
attend.
I forget.
But
The little kid put Jed on the spot with a good question. I forgot what it was. I was distracted because Jed, when he sat down, his pants went like his pant legs were like just under his knees. Like he had little like capris on.
Were the socks all the way up?
Yeah, and they were weird too. They were like squiggly gray socks with blue squiggles going up them. I must have been really proud of them. And then Boog was the MC.
Okay.
And he got up at one moment. He decided he thought it would be funny because they had a big graphic behind them was of Carter and Jed. He thought he wanted to get up and get in between them on the graphic. But he didn't think it through. He went to get up out of the seat, and he literally, this is the sound he makes. He goes, "Oh!" Like, are you all right there, bugger?
I assume he makes that noise quite a bit.
Oh, that's funny. The big thing that Judd or that Tom said, right, was about how the Cubs were just trying to break even every year.
Yeah, and that wasn't. He doesn't really talk anymore.
No.
Remember, he used to give the State of the Cubs address.
Yeah.
He doesn't do that anymore.
Good.
And they don't have a family panel. Those were worthless anyway. But at least
Right.
At least he gave people a chance to yell at them.
Yeah.
All he does now is he comes out. And I noticed this. Praz, did you notice it in the room? They really crank the music when he comes out.
Oh yeah.
So that you can't hear everybody boo.
Nope.
And then he's actually on TV. He has already started talking before they turn the music down. They're not taking any chances.
Right.
They don't want to hear how loudly he's being booed. And then he introduces who the utility tunnel of famers are, and he leaves. That's it. That's all it is. He welcomes everybody, says who's in their shabby little Hall of Fame.
I will say
he's gone.
One thing he did do during that whole introduction was like, it felt like he was almost kind of going out of his way to compliment Cole Wright on being an Emmy winner. I feel like on the heels of that Tribune article coming out about the worst and best sports broadcasters in Chicago.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's terrible. I mean, he just sucks. I feel like there's actually a relatively good host in there, but he's so up his ass with his own shtick, with the nicknames and the clever things. And like, it was Jeff Agrest in the Sun-Times who writes that thing. He hammers him every time. And it's basically, just stop talking so much. Like, you just talk and talk and talk. It's like, just he's Chip Carey, except in a different role. It's just, he's terrible. I never watched the show, but I had it on while I was waiting for the convention to start. And before it, they had their Bear show with Elise and Tom Waddle. It's amazing to me that show is on the same network as all the Cub shit. Because like Elise and Tom are like so comfortable.
Oh yeah.
And so Tom, I think, is probably super easy to work with because he's smart and he's articulate and he's funny. And
he's
Elise
media savvy too. Yeah.
And Elise loves it. Like, she's so happy and she's really good on that show. And then actually she was really good doing some of the like in between interviews. Like she's interviewed the Ben Brown interview where we got to see how sweaty his hat was. He says something like, he's like, well, I really like to, Ben was like going on and on about, everybody with the Cubs is great. He's like, the front office people are great and the clubhouse people are great. My teammates are great. And he looks at Elise like, you guys are great. And Elise does this thing where she kind of turns in half, looks at the camera and like flips her hair back. Like, oh, and then she gives him the like, go on thing. It was really funny. And it's like, why? Just use her. Like, she's actually good at this.
Yeah.
Just use her, for God's sake. Anyway, so there was that. Yeah, I thought the highlight of the Craig Counsell manager thing was the Bob Uecker story that he told.
Oh.
He said Robin Yount's dad was dying. Like, he was at his house and they knew that he didn't have that long to go. And Robin had been talking to the guys. And so Bob and Robin and Craig decided to go to Robin's dad's house to see him. And they pull up and Bob goes, he's like, guys, go ahead. I just need a minute in the car. And they're like, what? He's like, yeah, I'll catch up. I'm like, okay. So Craig says, we're coming in the house and we see Robin's mom. We're talking to her. And he says, we didn't know this, but Bob stripped down to his underwear and ran through the backyard. Just ran across the backyard. And they get out there and Robin's dad is sitting on the porch and he looks at Robin and he goes, I think Bob Uecker just ran through the yard in his underwear. And Robin's like, what? No, he's still in the car. We just left him in the car. He's like on the phone. He's going to be here in a minute. Okay. And he says a little bit later, Robin's dad looks up and he goes, he just ran by. I think he's naked. And they're like, what? Like, Robin's like, oh, come on. And then said a few minutes later, Bob comes walking in the door and he's like, hey, how are you guys doing? He's very clearly had just put, his clothes are like askew. And he goes, hey, how's everybody doing? Comes over, just sits. Bob never said a word, but he clearly had run through the yard.
That's outstanding.
Oh, man.
Cheers to Bob.
Yeah,
that was good. And
that was fantastic.
So that was the first news. And the second was that, surprise, Seiya's going to DH. And Craig basically told him, I don't care if you like it or not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tough shit. You want to play? You're going to DH. Okay, fine. I'll play.
Yeah.
So there's that. Tom in that, because he didn't talk at the thing, but he did an interview with the Athletic and he did an interview on The Score. And he got asking both of them, how aggressively they're going to try to keep Kyle Tucker.
Yeah.
Right.
And he just about is like, why wouldn't you just say you're really going to try? Even if you're not really going to try.
Right. Yeah.
Why do you, he's a good player. We'd like to keep him. It's like, Jesus, just lie to us for a while. You lie about other shit. Lie about this. Give us some lies that'll make us feel good.
Yeah, at this point, even if he lied to us, I don't think we'd believe it either.
That's true. Maybe he's like, well, they're not going to believe the word I say. I might as well tell them the truth.
I think that's what made that quote about we're just trying to break even every year so funny. Like the only way that's true is if you're in comedy.
Yeah, basically. For Christ's sake, you got the sports book, you got the NHL game that was there, you got 2 college hockey games that were there. There were the 2 college football games that were played at Wrigley. You got the convention. Nobody is believing it when you make the claim that you're just breaking even every year, Tom.
It's got to be up to a dozen concerts a year at that place.
Yeah. That place is a license to print money.
Yeah.
And then even if it wasn't, right? Even if we thought the revenue they're bringing in somehow fell a little bit short of what they're spending, even if you thought that, they bought that team for $845 million. It's worth $4 billion.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, you're still, even if you weren't breaking even, you were more than broken even.
Yeah.
Like, you could run some pretty big deficits for a long time. It's like this shows how old Citizen Kane is, but there's a line where his accountant says, he's like, this newspaper is losing $1 million a year. And he goes, yeah, well, at this rate, I'll run out of money in 50 years.
Yeah.
In other words, I don't give a shit. We're going to keep doing it because I'm not going to run out of money. Well, they're not going to run out of money.
Yeah. I mean, he could literally sell a quarter of the team, make his money back, and just be playing with house money.
Yeah. This whole idea, and Bert over at Bleacher Nation today apparently Kirby Yates put him over that was the breaking point for Bert. The Dodgers signing, maybe signing. The only person who's reported so far is Bob Nightingale. So it's like 70-30.
Right.
He's not going there. That was the one that finally broke him. And he's like, it's not fair the way they do things. And so it's like, you do realize that the fucking team that you obsess about could do this exact same thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
They just don't want to. So shut up.
Yeah.
This is not the Dodgers' fault that nobody else, that it's not the Dodgers' fault that they're trying to win the World Series and every other team is just either trying to make the playoffs, or if they're below that, they're just trying to make some money.
Yeah.
That's the difference between the Dodgers and everybody else. Is
the only thing I was annoyed about with the Dodgers is Roki. That was just annoying because that didn't come down to money, right? It was just him picking. That was annoying. But otherwise, you're right.
But they positioned themselves to do that, right? It's not, and that's the other thing. It's not just that they spend a lot of money. They're really good. Like, I forget who pointed out in The Athletic today, they don't fuck up these contracts.
Right.
When they spend big money on a guy, he's really good.
Yeah.
And then they're good at the other stuff. I think the reason, I know why the Cubs would be pissed at the Dodgers, because the Dodgers take all their excuses away.
Yep.
The Dodgers go over the luxury tax and they pay all the penalties. They pay the financial penalties. They pay the draft penalties.
Yep.
And they still have the best farm system. Even with these, oh my God, we can't do it because we'll lose draft picks or international money and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, how come the fucking Dodgers still have a top 2 farm system every year with this? Because they're good at it.
Yep.
You're basically saying we're not good enough at this to do that, so we can't do it. We're too dumb. we can't be penalized, or we'll really be screwed.
Yeah. Well, it's like with Sahir Hope, right? Is that how you pronounce his name?
The prospect they gave up for Bush. Yeah.
It's like with him, it's not about the Cubs trading him away and him getting good. If he turns out good, like who knows? But it's about their player development system.
Yeah.
And them investing in the right things.
I mean, look at that trade from the Dodgers standpoint.
Yeah.
Right? They traded a guy that their team was too good for him to play on.
Yeah.
There was no spot for Michael Bush, and he was too old to keep in the minors. Yep. So they flipped him over for now the 8th and like the 70th best prospects in baseball. Yeah. And the reason they could do it is their system is so loaded that they just had extra guys.
Yeah.
And they're like, we'll take this 26-year-old and we'll trade him for 2 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
Which is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. I mean, Michael Bush is not a bad player. Like, he's perfectly fine. I'm happy he's on the Cubs, but it's like, but you're exactly right. That says more about the Cubs or about the Dodgers than anything else.
Yeah. It just shows they're good at it. It's not just, people now are like just deducing it down to, well, of course they just spend all that money. And then they defer it. And the hand wringing and the pearl clutching about the deferred money. Oh my God. And then Tom was even trying to explain, like, well, oh no, it was Carter again. I get them confused. Carter was explaining, that the deferred money, if you pay Shohei $70 million a year, they're having to put like $45 or $50 million into an escrow account to account for it. It's not like you just don't get to. And the way he was explaining, it was very clear that what he was trying to get across to Cub fans is the reason we don't defer money is that it's still really expensive. And so that's why we don't do it. But it's like the Dodgers are making money off the money.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well,
so they're cutting you should do this. Why aren't you doing it? And the Cubs do. They defer money to fucking Jason Hayward. That's who they defer money to. Guys.
And it's a couple million a year. It's never to an advantage just to kind of save some cash. And here's the other thing. The deferment of the money also goes to the increase in the value of the ball club. So, like, obviously, in 10 years, the Dodgers are going to be worth another $1 billion. Yeah. So it's easy to then, like, you're just paying yourself. It's like a 401k loan, right? It's just like, whatever.
And there are people mad because the present day, like, the money that they literally pay Shohei right now is so small.
Yeah.
But that's another example of that was Shohei's idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Because then he could go to the Dodgers because they were good. Another them getting rewarded for being good again. And they could surround him with better players. Yeah. And then he'd end up with a little extra. He'd end up still getting, he had makes so much money off endorsements. He doesn't need his salary. So he can kick it down the road. He doesn't care. And then when he's 50, he's still going to be getting huge checks from the Dodgers.
The other thing, though, isn't just that. It's also then by the time he's 50, he doesn't have to pay California state tax.
Right.
Right.
So because it's like that's it's
because he'll get paid that money presumably when he's living in Tokyo or somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant on all accounts, but.
Yeah. And it's funny. What are the Cubs trying to brag? Well, the offer we gave Shohei was more in present day money. It's like, so it was.
Congratulations.
It was probably less. It was less money for Shohei.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you structured the deal in a way that put you at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Nice job. Way to go.
God, I hate the Ricketts.
Well, hey, at least from knowing that they made that offer to Shohei, that money is available, and you would like to think a majority of that money could go to a Kyle Tucker extension, but we all know that
it will.
Tommy Boy's gonna
that money will go to a Kyle Tucker extension when he signs with the Dodgers.
Yes,
That's exactly where that money is going to go when he goes to be their fifth outfielder next year.
Well, to be fair, I think the Dodgers do need a right fielder. Well, they got Teoscar, right? What else they got out there?
Teoscar's left field.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe with Mookie moving to short, they might move Teoscar over. So.
Mookie will finish the season in right field again.
Yeah.
Mookie is like Dave Brown and I talk about this all the time. Mookie, they just use Mookie to plug whatever the current hole is, and then eventually they're going to solve it, and Mookie's going to go back to right field. Yeah. Then Mookie bets that why didn't the Cubs trade for Mookie? What stopped them from doing it? Like every team should have tried to trade for Mookie, but the Dodgers are the ones who did. Because the Red Sox were dumb enough to trade him.
Or sign Freeman or anybody. Like literally anybody.
The deal with the Rockies that the Cardinals made for Arenado,
Well, I was going to say, the Dodgers' best players are almost all guys that any team could have had.
Yeah.
But the Dodgers were the ones who got them. So don't act like you couldn't have done this. The Cubs could have built almost the exact same team the Dodgers have.
Yep.
But they didn't do it. But that's okay. We got who needs Shohei? We got Ian Happ.
You said something earlier that's kind of interesting that made me think of a bit of an analogy, and that was about how the Dodgers just don't miss on players, on those contracts. And that, to me, is the difference between signing Dansby Swanson and signing Trey Turner.
Yeah.
Like, you got Trey Turner, it's 70% more money, whatever it is. So I think I'm doing my math right, I don't know. But it's way more of a sure thing.
You get a better player.
Right.
Yeah. What's the Dodgers' weakness has been scumbag pitchers.
Yeah.
Urias and Bauer. What's the one thing they've fucked up? That's what it is. And so Why do you think? And then good pitchers, guys who weren't scumbags, they all seem to get hurt. So what are they doing this year? They're just going to have like a 15-man pitching staff.
Yeah, they couldn't care less. And
because the whole thing is how many we need to make sure if 8 of these guys are healthy in October, we're going to win the World Series.
Yeah. And even
so we're going to stockpile them.
And with Urias, it wasn't like he was the Dodgers. By the time that Urias fucked things up, the Dodgers were done with him anyway because he'd given him 6 years or 7 years.
Yeah, he cost him in that playoffs though, right? Because they had to send him home.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. It is funny though, like just the one thing the Dodgers do, like the guy who like made the most money from them, even though he didn't really sign a contract from them, that like kind of was the least successful, you could say, is like David Price. But in that case, that was them taking on salary to make the Mookie Betts trade work. Yep. And, like that is another thing that they do that the Cubs could do that they didn't do. Like I remember in 2021 when they did the great sell-off, it was all speculated that was when the Cubs would have gotten Eric Hosmer from the Padres, trying to eat some salary and get a prospect or two from a very rich system at the time. And nope, didn't do it.
No.
Yeah.
They waited until they could get him for the league minimum. Yeah. Literally. That's what they did. They're like, oh, now we'll get him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The Cubs, it's not just their payroll or their free agent aspirations. They don't use their money. They have a huge money advantage in their own division, right? They're the only team with a lot of money. Oh, the Cardinals had a lot of money, but their TV deal is completely fucked up. Which is nice. Supposed to get $75 million a year. They're not getting it anymore. Oh, boo-hoo. You could use that because you had all that money. When you signed Jason Hayward and it didn't work out, you eat it. You paper over that. They wouldn't do it. Yep. They had to keep him on the roster till the dying months of his deal for reasons. When they went, remember when the Tigers were trying to trade Verlander at the deadline, and it got really close with the Cubs. Yep. They couldn't quite work it out, and the deadline came. All the Cubs had to do when the Dodgers or the Tigers put him on waivers was claim him.
Yeah.
Then he guaranteed you're going to get him. But they were like, well, no, we'll let him go through waivers, and then the trade we do with the Tigers, they can eat some of that money. And he cleared. Like he cleared waivers.
Right.
But then every other team could trade for him, and the Astros jumped in and got him instead. Just you have money. You want that guy, get him. You could literally in fact, the Tigers, if you claimed him, the Tigers may have very well just let you have him.
Yep.
And not have to give up anything.
Right.
But no, they, I can't imagine Theo was like, oh, I don't know, this doesn't seem financially prudent. I'm sure Theo went and said, we're just going to claim this guy. And Tom's like, oh, no, you're not. We're not paying that whole thing.
This episode is brought to you by Love Hurts. Kiwi Kwan has had quite a career, from childhood roles in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies to a recent Academy Award win for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But now Ki finally stars as a leading man in the film Love Hurts. Love Hurts is the perfect date night movie with its mix of over-the-top action, comedy, and a ton of heart. Love Hurts, only at theaters February 7th.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first, like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
It's maddening.
Do you think Cole Wright's nickname for Matt Shaw is going to catch on? Did you hear what it was, Praz?
What music was turned up a little too loud in that room, so didn't catch that.
Shawsome.
Shawsome. Yeah.
And his nickname for Owen Casey is ONKC.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's a vanity plate. That's not a nickname.
Yeah. Vanity plate.
That's just spelling his name with 4 letters. That's not a nickname. I hate to tell you.
ONKC.
ONKC.
Right. Just the letters O.
Right, you just say it. You end up when you
N-A-C.
do it, you just end up saying his name. So that's not a nickname.
Right.
You're just saying Owen Casey. That's not I hate to tell you, it's not how nicknames work. But that's great.
Should be awesome. Wait, what was Matt Shaw's show?
I mean, look, for those of us who read the Pointless Exercise newsletter, we all know it should be the albino rhino.
Well, that's gonna be his nickname. When he comes up and strikes out in half his at bats, it goes away. That's what's gonna be.
Right.
I can't say that Tom Loxis will lose his mind. He admits with no evidence he's just decided Owen Casey's gonna be good. Kind of like me and Matt Shaw.
Yeah.
Last year I was like, oh, Shaw's gonna be good. Just play him at third base. He'll be fine.
Right.
I think. Yeah, I can live with that.
The Cubs sure seem to think that. They have no plans to go out and get anybody to play third base. Just going to give it to Matt. And when has that ever killed the Cubs?
Yeah.
I can't think of any examples, Gary Scott or Kevin Ory. I can't think of it ever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little
Josh Vitters.
Right? Like
Josh
Shaw's,
Vitters.
Better prospect. I mean, we didn't know anything about prospects back then.
No.
About how to evaluate.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
true.
I think it was might have been Sahadev who wrote about like Shaw has done nothing but hit.
Yeah.
Correct.
So the concern, if you have any at third base, is his defense at third, which there's no reason to think he won't be an adequate third baseman immediately. So there really isn't, other than the fact that young players don't always,
Right.
they're not always good right away.
Yeah.
Good players aren't always good right away.
Yeah.
And you could, if you thought you could find a guy for 1 year, that's when Loxis and I were kicking around the idea that if nobody will sign Bregman, and Boris wants a pillow contract, why wouldn't you want Alex Bregman for a year when Shaw is your utility guy? Oh, this was the other. I know what it was. The infuriating question asked by the small child. The kid said, "If Nico Horner's not ready to play at the beginning of the season, who's going to play second base?"
Oh no.
And Carter's answer was
nobody had an answer.
Well, Nico's really tough. Buddy, go fuck yourself. That is not the answer. You have sabotaged 2 seasons by having guys play when they're hurt for no good reason. You know he's hurt. He literally hasn't thrown a baseball or swung a bat yet. And it's spring training isn't like the Cubs are the first team to report.
Yep.
The Dodgers and the Cubs go first. You need a second baseman, and you don't have one.
I was
really
relieved.
Tough. He'll just suck for a few months until he gets healthy. We'll live with it.
I was relieved when he was officially introduced at Cubs convention that his arm wasn't in a sling. That was very nice to see.
Go out in a sling.
It gives credence, though, to the idea that I don't think he really was hurt. I think he just has a tattoo of a scar, and he just did that so he wouldn't get traded to Seattle.
There you go.
Oh, I had surgery. Look at this.
It's
a temporary tattoo. It's accidentally wiping off while he's doing it. Oh, shit, that's coming off.
He wanted to get the matching tattoo with remember the one that Jabba Chamberlain got when he had Tommy John disease, where he got like the smiley face kind of with the.
Oh, is that right?
The tattoo all the guys get when they get the Tommy John is they have the laces added to the scar.
Ah, yeah.
Because the scar is almost it's basically follows the laces of a baseball.
There you go.
So that's like them. And since every pitcher has one, they can all show it to each other.
I guess the one thing with, talking about circling back to Matt Shaw for a second at third base, as you said, all he's done is hit. I would hope to God that if they're not going out and pursuing another third base option, that they're not going to screw around like they did with Chris Bryant for the service time manipulation, just have him on the roster. If defense is really a concern, could it really honestly be any worse than what the defense was for the Cubs at third base last season?
See, this was troubling. So the article that was in The Athletic, the only concern with Shaw is his arm, right? Like it's why he can't play shortstop. He doesn't have a shortstop arm, but he's going to have his arm will be fine at third base. And he said this was his example, and he's like, well, I don't have the strongest arm in the world, but like I saw, like Nick Madrigal was really good at like running into his throws. I'm like, oh fuck, we're not going to have this again.
I was just going to bring that up.
Are we really going to have you running halfway across the diamond to throw the ball to first? And I got to tell you, I am uncomfortable every day with the fact that no one has signed Nick Madrigal yet. Because the Cubs, if he gets to spring training, they're just going to bring him back. He'll end up on the fucking roster. Somebody sign him. Go to Korea.
He'll be the one starting
Azerbaijan. Go somewhere.
He'll be the one starting at second base in Japan. Nico's not ready.
That's what I was just about to say. And no.
Well, they have the great Gage Workman.
Yeah.
Right. Magical 2.0 from the Tigers.
Yeah, except the opposite though. He's enormous. He's 6'4". He's like the opposite. That's twins.
Man,
like he's Arnold and Nick is Danny DeVito.
A 6'4" middle infielder is. Can someone check on Theo Epstein and make sure he's okay? Yeah. Not thinking about having that tall of a middle infielder.
Apparently, Jed did not share that. Actually, Jed wanted Seager.
Oh, is that right?
Yep.
You got
at least that's what Jed says now.
Yeah.
After he won 2 World Series, I wanted that guy, but Theo wouldn't listen to me. You know how Theo was, Mr. Smart Guy.
Time out for a second.
Single-handedly saved 2 franchises.
I'm on Gage Workman's baseball reference page. Anyone want to take a guess at what his middle name is?
Gage.
It is not. It isn't even a name.
Is his first name really Gage?
His first name is really Gage.
Meter.
You are very close, actually. Very close with what Andy just said.
Oh.
So Meter.
Same
Gauge,
meter. And not to say it's like meter or gauge or anything like that, but
tachometer.
Same ending sound of the name, we'll say.
Jeter.
Demeter, the goddess of grain.
No, his middle name is Tater. Gage Tater Workman.
Where's he from?
Like Tater Tot. Yeah. He is from doesn't say his birthplace on here, but he went to Basha High School, Chandler, Arizona. I think that's the same place Brennan Davis went. Went to Arizona State for college. So would assume he's an Arizona kid.
So for people who don't subscribe to the newsletter and only read until the paywall kicks in, you would have missed today, I think, one of the great factoids I've unearthed, which is former Cub first rounder Brett Jackson. Remember Brett Jackson, don't you, Oleg?
Yeah.
Handsome guy. Jim Hendry's like, he looks like a star, and he sucked. Do you know what his job is?
Right now? What's he doing? Is he a high school baseball coach?
He owns the company that, how on Marquee, when they show the graphic, would that have been a home run if the wind wasn't blowing in? Brett Jackson owns that company.
Really?
Yeah. He owns the company that does that?
Yes. Technology? Advanced weather metrics or something like that. He owns it. And he's like that. If you watch games, like when you watch, around the league, that's probably half the teams have that service.
Yeah, well, the national broadcast
doing very well for himself, apparently. Yeah, so congratulations to Brett Jackson.
Right, the national broadcasts have or maybe Fox does, they show the direction of the wind, and if it's different, between right field and left field and stuff.
That apparently is Brett.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess he was actually going to class at Berkeley, not just striking out.
Just striking out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good for
I linked
Brett.
to his in the newsletter. I linked to his LinkedIn page. You can all become LinkedIn buddies with Brett Jackson. Give us a job and some money. That'd be nice. So he landed on his feet. He also, do you remember the Fox show with the girl pitcher who was through the knuckleball? What's it called? The Pitch? Wasn't that what it's called?
Just pitch.
Yep. He was in it. He played one of the plays. I knew that because I remember I watched that show and I thought it looks like Brett Jackson, and in the credits, I'm like, it's Brett Jackson.
Wow. Huh.
He sort of looks like Greg Olson.
Yeah, I could see that.
So.
The moppy blonde
hair.
It
was very clear that the Cubs drafted him because he was handsome. It's like, guys, I don't know that this is going to work.
Yeah.
And it didn't. All right, so there was that. Glad you had a good time at the convention. Glad you got to meet Sammy.
Absolutely.
I met Sammy at a convention years before.
Nice.
He's look, I know I'm sure he was an annoying teammate, but
I didn't have to be teammates with him.
Yeah, I always really liked him. I mean, he was one of those guys who, and I've told this story before, right? Like, so when he was playing with the White Sox, when I first got to Northern, I used to make fun of White Sox fans because they had this wild idiot with the Jerry curl who was, trying to win the game for both teams at the same time. And I made fun of Sammy. And then in spring training that year, all of a sudden he's a Cub. And I had to become the biggest Sammy Sosa defender in the world. And I remain that.
Yeah.
I started that early and I never gave it up.
I will say this. Sammy was infuriating sometimes.
Yes, he was.
He was.
It was long. Like, he could be, I mean, obviously incredibly selfish and just very, like, he just never seemed like a team player. And, like, it always rubbed the meatball in me wrong. But since he retired, since he left, like, fuck it.
Yeah.
I'll say this. The times that he got, like, kind of a little standoffish and, like, at least then, it was the last 2 years of his career, and most of that vitriol went toward Dusty, which none of us are fans of here. So, we all have a common enemy for, what Sammy had.
I got a kick out of Sammy, and he got interviewed by Cole Wright, and he got interviewed by Ryan Dempster.
Yep.
Then he got interviewed by Ian Happ. And honestly, I've said this, the Happ interview is really good. Like, I thought it was going to be terrible. I was like, oh, this is going to be awful. But it was just two baseball players talking baseball. Oh. And it was the best I've ever heard Sammy ever be interviewed because he started to stop the bullshit answers and he just started talking about baseball. But I got a big kick out of Sammy saying shit that those of us who watched him play every day knew was bullshit. Yeah. Because Happ's looking at his stats and he would look down at the sheet and his eyes would get like really big because Sammy's stats are ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, you drove in 160 runs 1 year. And he's like, so what? Why were you so good at driving in runs? And Sammy gives the baseball answer, right? Well, when it's like when you get up there, buddy, and and there's a runners at second and third, you just have to get them in. You got to shorten up your swing. You got to go to right field. I'm like, Sammy, you never fucking did that. He's like, got to have a plan. Your plan was to just hit the ball 600 feet to left field every time you came up. That was your plan, and we enjoyed. That was when he was infuriating. There would be times he would come up. And it was like Javi, another of our all-time favorites.
Yep.
Javi would go up and you're like, Javi, all we need is just to hit it up the middle. And Javi, the least strike 1 and 2, Javi's swinging from his ass and falling down. Sammy did it all 3 pitches. He was never going to adjust.
Well, I will say this. Even when Javi came up against the Giants, and I only know, I was reminded of this because I saw it on either Facebook Reels or something, right? Because the anniversary, maybe it was a while back. Anyway, the base hit he got against the Giants in game 4.
Hunter Strickland basically gave the Cubs a run.
Yeah. Man, that was anyway.
Threw him 2 curveballs that Javi screwed himself into the ground.
Yep.
Then he throws him a fastball and Javi hits it right up the middle.
But Javi swung like
he tried to hit it. He tried it into the bay. Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah,
with a glove out in the left field with only 4 fingers.
I mean, the reason why he got through on the ground like that's because he hit the shit out of the ball.
Yeah, if Strickland had thrown him another breaking pitch, Javi strikes out.
Yeah,
right.
I do think that you just made me realize something, and that is my love for Javi is definitely like I don't know that I would love Javi as much as I do if it weren't for Sam. I think that's
could be.
That's an interesting because it's like a Donahue's whole thing, right? Was Sammy Sosa loved the spotlight and he always swung out of his ass, and that's why he never hit a grand slam. It took him a long time to hit a grand slam. And it's sort of, I mean, that's kind of true, right? I mean, Sammy
took him 8 years, right?
Right.
Because he hit it 98, and then he hit one the next day.
Yeah.
Doesn't hit one. But this is funny. Do you know
it was in Arizona though, right? Like his first
Arizona, yep.
So like it still took a while for him to hit one at home because everybody got so excited and just got that energy.
Yeah. Us Cub fans doing our typical shit would stand up and start cheering, and it was basically guaranteed that Sammy's going to strike out.
Yep.
But honestly, Jody Davis used to do the same thing. I was a doubleheader once where he ended both games by striking out with the fans chanting Jody.
Oh,
whiff, whiff, whoops. What was I going to say about Sammy though? Oh, he also talked about. So Happ hands him one of his old bats.
Okay.
And I thought, is it corked? But it was, he wanted to, Sammy used to put all that tape on the handle.
Yeah.
And Happ was just asking him why he did it. And so Sammy was explaining it. And then Hap is just assuming things. This is a great baseball player. He's like, okay, so when you got to 2 strikes, you would choke up, right? And Sammy's like, Like, when did you ever do that? Honestly, I think there were times you choked down. You didn't have your bottom hand on the bat anymore. It was the opposite. You never choked up in your life. I was like, whose career are we talking about?
On every swing.
But Sammy, we're all friends here. You don't have to lie about this shit. You didn't do it, and we loved you for it. So stop it.
He did not understand the question. There's no even that is so. I mean, it's
no. He understood. He was choking up on his bat, and I'm like, you never did that though. This must be a weird feeling for you.
Yeah. Oh, this is what it feels like.
He's like, hey, I should have done this. One of the crazy things Pete Crow told the story is that so they had that uniform reveal the night before, and Sammy came like that. Nobody knew he was coming. He was invited. He didn't just like crash it. But the current players, that was the thing I think. Well, I'm sure that had to shock the Cubs. Like the current players were like so excited to meet him because he's Sammy Sosa. You know, I mean, he's one of the greatest players in baseball history, no matter what you want to think about all this stuff. Yep. He walks up to Pete and starts talking to Pete about the way Pete hits. And Pete's like, he actually knows who I am. And he actually is like, watch me, which is funny because during the interview, Elise did an interview with Derek Lee after the thing. And he said, well, and she's talking to Derek. He's like, well, you know, so like last year when you watched Michael Busch play at first, and Derek goes, I got to admit, I didn't really see him play.
Wow.
Derek's like, I'm not watching enough fucking Cubs. I don't play with you guys anymore. The hell? I saw enough Cub games when I played for the Cubs.
Right.
He was also there for what? How long was Derek Lee a Cub?
04 to middle of 2010. So like 6.5.
6.5 years.
Probably 6 if you factor in how much time he missed.
Derek seems like he was talking about how much he loves the Cubs and the current Cubs, all that stuff. So it's not like Elise.
Yeah.
Like she walked right into it because she's like, well, obviously he's watching the Cubs. And he's like, I got to admit, I really haven't seen him play.
That's even more infuriating about the Ricketts is that Sammy actually cares. Like he actually, actually cares about this team and he loves the Cubs and like, oh man, fuck those guys. Jesus.
Well, that was Ricketts who's like, well, you know, this weird relationship with Sammy that we inherited. Well, you didn't fucking have to, right?
No,
like, you didn't have a weird relationship with him. You made it that way. Like, you know, when you bought the team, he was only like, what, 2 years away. Sammy sat out a whole year. Oh, Sammy was still playing. 09 was his last year, I think, when the Ricketts bought the team.
Okay.
As in Sammy.
He came back with the Rangers in 07.
Didn't play in 8 at all. Came back in 9 to hit a 600th homer. Maybe he came back in 8. It was 8 because
7 was his 600th homer, and then that was his last year.
All right, so 4. That's right. He played 05 with the Orioles.
Didn't play 06. Then 07 came back.
And it's actually one of the actual nice parts of the Dempster interview with him was they're showing the 600th homer, and he's pointing out, he's like, so here you are hitting your 600th homer against your old team against the guy that they gave your number to. Because he hit it out Jason Marquis. Sammy also talked about how he's like, the Hap asked him like, what kind of pitchers did you struggle against? And Sammy's like, oh, I struggled against the mediocre pitchers, the ones who didn't throw hard.
Yeah.
He's like, but he goes, the great pitchers like Randy Johnson, I hit him really well. Like I'm thinking, did he? And Kurt
I was thinking that too, because like Randy Johnson always dominated against the Cubs, but
Sammy thought he hit 8 home runs off of Randy. He hit 4.
Okay.
But Sammy hit 7. Sammy did light up Schilling, and he hit 7 homers. Sammy hits the most homers he hit against any pitcher was 7. He hit 7 against Jose Lima.
Yep.
And against Kurt Schilling.
Yeah.
And then I put in the thing. There was this guy named David Williams who pitched for like I said not Davey Williams, not the old Bear running back who ran the kickoff against the Lions.
Not the Barstool White Sox guy. Yeah.
He pitched for this guy pitched for the Reds and the Pirates and the Mets. And he faced Sammy 22 times. And in those 22 at-bats, he gave up 6 homers and 9 walks.
Wow. 22 plate appearances.
Plate appearances. 22 plate appearances.
Wow.
15 of them either ended with a home run or a walk. Sammy's slugged over 2,000 against him.
Wow. It's not the same David Williams who was the University of Illinois wide receiver, was it?
No. Maybe his cousin.
I think maybe my favorite part of the Sammy recorded content that he did this weekend was when he was talking with Dempster on Friday night, and they get on the subject of like, June of 98. First off, like, Dempster is trying to tee up this shot of the first home run he hit in 1998 because it was off Ryan Dempster when he was with the Marlins.
Yeah,
and
the
Sammy,
first one in June. Yeah.
Right. And Sammy didn't even realize it. He was like going on and on about like who he hit his last home run off of. But then he got to this part where he was saying, like, I'm still pissed because I think I should have had 27 home runs that year because of 7 balls that went foul that were deep enough to be home runs.
So, yeah, Ryan Dempster's first career start was against the Cubs on June 1st, 1998. He'd made 2 relief appearances, which hadn't gone well. And he said, he goes, I strike out Brant Brown. And I'm thinking, all right, look at me. And then I walk Mickey Morandini, and then Sammy hits a ball that, is still orbiting the earth. This is Ryan Dempster's first inning from that. He struck out Brant Brown. He walked Mickey Morandini. He gave up a home run to Sammy Sosa. He walked Mark Grace. He threw a wild pitch. He gave up a home run to Henry Rodriguez. He walked Jeff Blauser. He hit Jose Hernandez. And then he struck out Sandy Martinez and Jeremy Gonzalez. He gave up 4 runs, and he did not come back to pitch the second.
Wow. Didn't even have to wait till the 5th inning to do it like he did.
Did. Sorry, he did. He did pitch 2 innings. In the second, he gave a double to Brant Brown. Mickey Morandini singled Brant in, and then he struck out Sammy Sosa.
Oh.
And that would have been... it was the second strikeout he struck out. Got out of that, and then he did not come back for the third. He just pitched 2. All right.
It's like the Dodgers game in a way.
Pretty much.
Except only 2 innings, yeah.
I've now run into him 3 times at the Starbucks I go to.
Yeah. That comb over is really something these days.
Ryan's?
At least his fake TV show comb over was very elaborate.
Yeah.
It's very Lou Henson-ish. There's a lot of arranging going on. He's given up on the back. He's just trying to make it look like, and I'm sure it's because, doesn't he do the awful Kevin Millar show now on?
Yeah, Intentional Talk. Yep.
So he just needs the front. So when he looks at the camera, it looks like he has hair. That's what he's going for now. Whatever. So there you go. Well, I'm glad you had a good time at the convention. And
it was a fantastic Friday night. I was soured a little bit after reading the Ricketts comments on Saturday morning, but who wasn't?
And then they, I think, report for spring training in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
February 9th, I believe, is a date for them.
Yeah.
Finally going, we'll make it to spring training this year.
Oh, very nice.
A friend and I are going to the extra innings, or maybe it's just the innings festival on Saturday, and then go to the Cubs game the next
day. One thing I noticed was it's a good thing that baseball players wear hats, because man, there's a lot of bad hair on those Cubs. A lot.
Ooh, yeah.
Holy shit.
Did you happen to see Jameson Taillon without his hat on? Because it is going.
He's all forehead. It's a 6 head. It's not a forehead. That thing just doesn't stop. So apparently on Sunday morning, they brought back a lot of the like black alumni, and they did like a Martin Luther King Jr. Day, like a thing, which seemed like it was a very nice thing. And some of the Cubs, like Billy Williams and Fergie, actually knew Dr. King and all that stuff. And so I was trying, they just had clips. It wasn't Marquis. Why would Marquis have shown that? So I was looking at it. I was like, are there any current players? And then I was like, do the Cubs have any black players? How many do you think they have on their 40-man roster?
Wow. Nobody is coming to mind right now. Not even anyone that would be like dark of Dominican descent.
They have one. Tyson Miller. He's the only one.
I didn't know that
They are the whitest team. They don't really have that many. They don't even have that many like Dominicans.
Right.
It's
like the Proud Boys started a baseball team.
And I literally just learned that Tyson Miller is black.
I'm with you on that. I just learned that now.
I could be wrong. I'm not wrong.
All right, good. It'd be awkward.
But he's the only one. Poor guy's on his own.
Wow. All right, fair enough.
So anyway, so that's the Cubs. The I want to read because you sent what you wanted to talk about the Bears. You sent it to me.
I did.
Yeah. This you sent on Thursday.
Okay.
Can we also talk about how much I couldn't care less if Ben Johnson is the head coach of the Bears, and how him and Tom Brady deserve each other, and how I'd be fine if it ends up being McCarthy?
Oh no! Oh no!
I wonder if I was angry. I don't think I was angry.
No, it didn't seem angry at all.
I think I just sort of meant that, like, whatever.
Way to reverse jinx it, Oleg.
That's hilarious.
Now, I have to admit, I was stunned that it happened on Monday. I could not believe that. He didn't even... So this is the guy who a year ago, the Commanders are flying to Detroit to interview him right before the plane took off.
Right.
And there's a bunch of different... This I love. This is the Washington version of the story, like the Commander apologists. He's talking to them. They had the second pick in the draft. He's like, he goes, I don't want to use that pick on a quarterback. Sam Howell will be fine. That guy can be my starting quarterback. We don't need Jaden Daniels.
That's what...
Do we really think Ben Johnson said that? Well, that's Sam Howell. I like the cut of his jib. That'll be fine. Do not draft Jaden Daniels. I don't want it. He wouldn't get on that. So that plane landed. They came anyway because then they ended up just interviewing Aaron Glenn. They were supposed to interview both of them, and they just interviewed Aaron Glenn, and then they went home. And this time, he didn't bother with the flight.
Yeah.
He's just fine. How much? You want to give me $13 million a year for 5 years? I'll just take it.
So you're saying that plane that everyone was tracking yesterday was not actually him.
Well, it could have been because they did go get him, but he took the job first. Like this morning was the first time he'd ever stepped foot in Hallis Hall. Wouldn't it be funny if he walked in, looked around, and went, "Oh Jesus, this place is a shithole. I don't want to work here."
Oh man.
I was like, it was kind of funny when the reports first started coming out on Monday or yesterday, right? It was like I just didn't believe it. Like, something's going to happen here. Like,
well, you know who I immediately thought of?
Dave McGinnis.
Yeah. I'm like, oh shit.
Oh boy.
It's happening again. They're out over their skis. They let it leak out. He hasn't done it yet. Because I just couldn't believe that, to me, it wouldn't have been like shocking if he had come to the Bears first and then signed and didn't bother to go to Vegas or Jacksonville. That happens. Like a really good organization would basically try to lock the door and not let him out and try to just sign him. But he didn't even bother to. He just said, fine, I'm just coming.
Yep.
If I remember, that's kind of how Wanstead happened, right? Like they
wouldn't let him go because he was supposed to go to the Giants after that.
Yeah.
And little Mike McCaskey. Rough. He put himself. He stood in front of the cab. wouldn't let Dave go. He's also like, we don't have to pay for this, right? He never got in.
As someone who's too young to have ever heard Mike McCaskey speak any words, is that actually how he sounded, or is that like a radio impression?
You know who that is? That's my Mike North impression. Of Mike McCaskey. He did the Bears used to do the fans used to do like woof, which is stupid. We're not dogs, with bears. But that was always North's woof woof woof. As if that's how McCaskey would do it. Woof woof woof. Yeah, you really missed out on Mike. George, for as much shit as we give George, you would much rather hang out with George.
Oh, absolutely.
And George is still a complete dork, but it would be more pleasant to hang out with George than it would be with Mike. Ivy League prick. Probably didn't even go to the Ivy League. But yeah, so they so the guy who the guy from New York who writes the Bears blog and claims he has all these sources.
Yeah.
I've been checking in with once in a while because this can be hilariously wrong. Like 2 weeks ago, he's like, the Ben Johnson thing's been a done deal since Christmas. Like, he's coming to the Bears. I don't know why everybody's freaking out. They said, and then when they started when they interviewed McCarthy and whatever, and he's like, the Bears have to do some due diligence just in case the Hail Mary from Vegas actually works. Like, they're going to get Ben Johnson. He's like, I don't know why everybody's so worried about it. And then it's like, oh shit, maybe he could have just been pulling shit out of his ass.
Yeah. I mean,
but he may have actually, somebody there may have actually been like, no, we're pretty comfortable. Yesterday, the rumor was that the final like hurdle they had to clear was Ben wanted to be reassured that Kevin Warren as president didn't have anything to do with like who he could hire as a coach and what players he and Poles could get.
Okay.
And that once they said that, like he's apparently has been fine with Poles the whole time. Like, no, he'd be fine. And then it was Fork who put on the comments today something that I think is probably right, which is he's in a great position because if he comes in and him and Poles work really well together and they fix the offensive line and whatever, then they just start winning. If it doesn't work, Poles is out. Right. And then Ben like has all the power.
Yeah.
Right.
He's basically in charge of everything. So it's kind of a win-win. Either the relationship works and they're just ready to go, or he takes over a year later and he does all the shit.
Right.
So that's probably true.
I think I feel like this means that Poles is sticking around for 3 years.
Yeah, I would. I mean, if I were the Bears, I would, and they should do it anyway because they have money. They prove that. You should probably. I don't know that he really got 5 years. You probably should extend Poles, even if a year from now, like, oh fuck, that didn't work. We're gonna fire him.
You can't.
You don't want him to be a lame duck.
Do you think he's only got 1 year left? Is that what you're?
He does have, unless he signs an extension. This is his last year, so they should just. And they may have extended. You know, they wouldn't say. They're so weird.
Exactly. Yeah, nobody ever knows what the contract situation is for.
And then the Cubs are the same way now. Like Jed, we know how long they told that they were perfectly happy to tell everybody how long Counsell's contract was, but they won't tell anybody if Jed got an extension or not. It's the same with the Bears and Poles.
Yeah, they should give Poles. I mean, they just got to handcuff the two together. I mean, I guess maybe not, but.
Well, you can always fire him. You just have to pay him. Hell, they're getting really good at paying guys who don't work for them.
Yeah.
I don't think, I guess unless something goes incredibly sideways, even if they fail, I think we're looking at 3 years. Like there's the possibility exists that Caleb Williams just turns into Matthew Stafford, just plays for a team that never wins, but it's really, really good. That would suck. That would really, really suck.
And then goes elsewhere and wins the Super Bowl.
Well,
but,
whatever. But
hopefully,
that's not gonna happen.
Hopefully, we're not speaking that into existence.
The Bears are a really they're a good team. I mean, I granted, I thought they'd win 12 games this year, and Eberflus would be coach of the year.
You were close,
huh?
You were close.
Yeah. I mean, they were right there, just a bit outside. But they're not that far off. Like, I think the offensive line, like everybody talks about, is a huge hill to climb. I don't think it's that. Like, they can fix the offensive line.
Yeah. Yep. They should have. The thing that makes you worried is that they should have fixed it 2 years ago. They should have fixed it last year.
Well, 2 years ago,
and
you were sure. Right, last year was the thing. And what I would argue is that they thought that they had.
Yeah, they thought.
Shelton and Bates.
Yeah.
They brought in, they didn't know Nate Davis was just going to lose interest. Again, last year was last year, but like Nate Davis just never showed up. I guess counting on Tevin Jenkins is weird, but like, what are you going to do? Right? Like, you knew he was going to get hurt. You just sort of hope to paper over it. And they're fine with Wright and Jones.
Yeah, I mean, Braxton was hurt to start the season, and he's hurt at the end.
Yep.
And so you really didn't have your left tackle for most of the season.
Right.
But the middle of the line was bad, and it got them. They got overpowered a lot, and it fucks everything up. And that was Ryan Bates was supposed to be the center.
Yeah.
And he shows up and he's got arthritis so bad he can't lift his arm above his head. And then he goes to Brazil and gets some like crazy operation that worked, but then he hurt something else.
Yeah.
So it just didn't work out.
Yeah. And and that's the thing, like you thought, and that's I guess, I mean, maybe I'm just a Poles apologist, but that's my argument, is that he thought that he did fix the line. And like I said, and even the inside of the line just happened to be what it is, but Tevin Jenkins is pretty good. Like, you just can't count on him, but he's pretty good.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, how many years does he have to get hurt before you're like, well, but I'm probably going to have him for 8 games.
Somebody will give him $10 or $12 million a year.
Do we happen to know, like, does Ben Johnson's run as Lions OC, does that stretch back to the time when DeAndre Swift was their running back? Because I was going to say it. That is one of the things that's probably most encouraging for
me. On Monday went, what? Oh, shit.
Yeah.
There are, I think it was Robert Mays. Was he talking about the fact that if you watch the coach's film of the Bears, DeAndre Swift drives you absolutely insane because he leaves so many yards. He misses holes. He cuts back into nothing. And when there's but when he hits, he's really dynamic.
Right.
So when he hits, he's great. But they said it's just, there's so many like 5 and 6 yard gains there to get that he doesn't get, that he ends up with 2 yards or 1 yard, and those add up. And that was the reason that the Lions let him go. They wanted to get, they just wanted to overhaul running back, and then they ended up with, Dave Montgomery actually got to run behind a line that would block for him, which helped. And then Jahmyr Gibbs Brady at one point called him their best player, and I think he's right. Jahmyr Gibbs is probably their best offensive player. He's really good.
Yeah.
And so somebody today was like, well, the Bears are going to need to get a complimentary running back to go with DeAndre. I'm like, I think DeAndre needs to be the complimentary running back to somebody else. Like, he's your change of pace guy. He should be your every down back.
Yeah. And I kind of like Rashawn Johnson, but he just probably doesn't seem to fit. Or maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't understand why they got, I don't understand why they didn't use Khalil Herbert and then why they traded him.
Right. Man.
And then they ran out of running backs. They had a game late in the season where they had to keep lining DJ Moore up at running back because they only had DeAndre that was healthy, and DeAndre was hurt. I mean, DeAndre wasn't even really healthy. It's like, Jesus, you gave depth away for no apparent reason to get a 6th-round pick. Nice job. Maybe you could bring Justin Fields back, and he could be the running back.
Steelers actually did utilize him that way, too.
Steelers didn't utilize it much at all after Russ took over.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Right.
He threw 2 passes.
A few more.
After week 6, he threw 2 passes, and he only ran for 32 yards.
Yeah, he needed a few more snaps to get to that 50% for a 4th-round pick.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Some Steeler fan was writing this thing about, Steelers win the trade with the Bears. It's like, you didn't use the guy you got.
Right.
You didn't win the trade. You just didn't lose it. It was a pillow fight.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Well.
It'll all be great when, we look back at when they're doing Hard Knocks again next year with the Bears, and we see DeAndre Swift going through the same drills that Ian Wheeler was with Jennifer King and Chad Morton.
I wonder they don't get to repeat on Hard Knocks though.
That's true.
Actually, they'll never do it again.
I think teams could have the option to do so. The Bears wouldn't.
Well, yeah, like the Cowboys have been on. Jerry will do it every time.
Right.
Jerry's like, yeah, I'll do it. Why not? That'd be great. So, look at you had talked yourself into the Mike McCarthy would have been fine.
Yes.
Laxus and I talked about this on Thursday. We both would have been like disappointed. And then give us 2 days, we would have convinced ourselves that it was fine.
He's a good head coach.
Yeah, but he runs an offense that's still pretty good, but it's an offense of the past.
Yeah, all right.
And then Ben Johnson runs all the cool shit.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see Keenan Allen throwing passes. It's gonna be great. Actually, that's a guy I guarantee you that Ben will have zero interest in Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen.
He's like, ooh. Can we find somebody slower to play in the slot? No.
You know that one Packers asshole on Twitter, Peter Bukowski?
That one?
Well, the most notable one, we'll say. I think he tweeted something today, like the clip from the last game when Keenan Allen threw that interception. He said, "This is going to be the Bears' first play from scrimmage under Ben Johnson."
Huh.
So he's making fun of the Bears from a game that they beat the Packers in.
Exactly, yes.
And making fun of the Lions, who beat the Packers both times. Ben Johnson beat them both times.
Yes.
And then the Packers, the Lions went out. The Lions had an excuse to flame out. Their entire defense was like in the emergency room.
Exactly, yeah.
Actually, it's funny, all the stuff about why he's not going to want to coach in the NFC North because the NFC North is such a tough division. He knows it. He beats all the time. Look at the playoffs. It doesn't look like all that tough a division.
No, it did not.
All three teams got their ass handed to them. I don't think it's that daunting.
A dude I work with is a Lions fan, and I had a call with him today. He's one of our senior managers. Anyway, I had a call with him today, and we talked about Ben Johnson for a while. And I'm like, I don't think I'm worried about the Packers or the Vikings. Like, I don't know that. Like, if the Bears do what they're supposed to do, like, that's not. I don't think either of those teams is much of an issue as long as they moves.
I do actually kind of wonder, like, what kind of decline the Lions take, because like Aaron Glenn is probably going to get a head coaching job too. That's going to be 2 new coordinators.
Yeah,
they're going to have to.
I mean, the Lions still have. I mean, the Lions are just a really good team. They've got a lot of.
But that window for them seems so short. With like, Jared Goff ain't exactly a youngster,
right?
So
that's the Goff is the big one, and then at some point they'll have to pay Hutchinson. That'll eat up a bunch of cap space.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think I've ever done a 180 on a coach like I did on Dan Campbell. Like, I believe that it's this fucking WWE wrestler asshole with drinking with 16 shots of espresso in his coffee every morning, and fake tough guy, whatever.
Yeah,
I think he's a really good football coach.
He is.
Like, none of that's an act. It's just him. And I think they'll, obviously, if you lose both coordinators, that's going to hurt, and they will lose some players. But they got a lot of talent on the team, and they're really good. Like, everybody, me included, made fun of their draft a couple of years ago because they were like drafting positions that you typically don't have to draft real high in the draft, and every guy they got is good. Like, they're just good at it. So
I think part of losing.
I'm ready for the Bears and Lions to be the class of the North and crash into each other for the next 5 years. I'm fine with that.
Exactly.
I think one of the things about being a leader, and one of the things about coordinators or graduating coordinators and graduating, other coaches into other jobs, is that, like, I think a good leader always sort of produces leaders, right? Like, a good head coach, like, it just doesn't matter, right? Offensive coordinator leaves, the next guy, you just empower him to be the leader, and then you pick the right guy and you keep going, right? It's just like, happening
for sure.
Walsh. It's probably true of, maybe not so much Belichick, but
hey, we know it. We saw it to Coach. Buddy Ryan leaves, you bring in Vince Tobin, and you don't miss a step. Famously, the '86 Bears had a better defense statistically than the '85 Bears did.
Right,
if you watch the games, they did not have as much of an impact, but still, they were good.
Right. It was, they weren't anchored down by Wilbur Marshall.
That's right. They were freed up from having a freakishly great outside linebacker.
That's always the weird thing about '85, right? Is that Al Harris and Todd Bell held out, which is kind of hilarious.
Yes.
And then they came back, and Todd Bell eventually went to the Eagles.
They both went to the Eagles. They both went to play for Buddy.
Oh, yeah, all right.
Yeah. And you know who took over for Wilbur?
I thought it was Al Harris. Al Harris didn't come back.
Chico.
Oh, is that
Chico.
Al was back. Both Todd and Al played in '86, but then by '87, I think they were both Eagles.
Yeah, Rivera was.
This is the part of the podcast where Huey screams at the.
Yeah.
And now I just do it on purpose. I could look that up. I'm not gonna. He sent me. We were talking about something a couple weeks ago, and you and I fixed whatever it was, and he's like, "I was just about to lose it, and then I heard you guys look it up and correct yourselves." Like, we're happy for you. I'm just glad you're proud of us. I'm not looking that one up. I do know that eventually Ron Rivera played Wilbur's spot.
Well, Ron, I mean, he was there, and
he was on the Super Bowl team,
right? Yeah. So then he'd been there.
The convoluted rules. The Rooney Rule is, you have to interview someone of color in person,
right?
Yeah.
And it was funny. Alexis and I were joking when they interviewed Ron Rivera seemingly out of nowhere. Like, they just saw him in the parking lot. Like, oh, hey, Ron Rivera's wandering around the park. Hey, you want to interview for the job?
Come on, get in here real quick.
I got to give I'm sure this is, so a lot of people giving a lot of credit to Kevin Warren today. They're like, what's the difference between the two searches? It's like, okay, I get it. Like, Kevin Warren, I think, is like, he's aggressive and he thinks big. And I think he makes the McCaskies like accept bigger possibilities than they normally would. I think that's true.
Right.
But what is the difference between two searches? It's Caleb Williams is the difference in the two searches. The job was a lot more attractive with Caleb than it was with Justin. We know that.
Yeah.
But then we were joking about so that they did that interview with Eddie George on Saturday.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
Right.
And it's like, that seems like a weird one. That was why they could hire Ben Johnson yesterday.
Oh,
because Eddie was the second in-person person of color interview, so they had checked the boxes and they were ready to go. And
you have to do 2 now?
You have to do 2.
Oh, did not.
You also have to do 2 for your coordinators, so they've got to find 2 guys to interview before they can hire Dennis Allen to be the defensive coordinator.
Of course. That's what's thinking.
But I didn't understand that, though. Does that mean they didn't interview Thomas Brown in person? They interviewed him. Did they make him do it on? They made him do it on Teams. I have a feeling that they had already fulfilled it.
Yeah.
But everybody's like, that was really savvy. They brought Eddie in and they were able to do it. Well, if that's why, that's great. But
that
they were able to
was weird.
And they basically kept Ben from getting wooed by Mr. Personality, Mark Davis. I would have loved to have seen that in-person interview with Brady, the guy who owns 5% of the team, like trying to keep you away from the guy who owns 95% of the team. Oh, that's okay. He's a nice guy. You don't need to. He's a PF Chang's. Don't worry about it. And they're like trying to, like, Tom's like blocking him. Mark's in the back going, hey, is that Ben Johnson? No, shut up. Go get your hair cut again.
Yeah.
Put the bowl on. It'll be fine.
I think
Mark, put a hat on, please.
It's fairly clear. I'm kind of surprised you mentioned it earlier that he only signed for $13 million a year, because I'm sure that the whole Raiders Tom Brady thing, now that you think back, must have been leaked by
his agent.
Yeah, like it must have been to get more money out of the Bears, because it does seem relatively obvious that this didn't just come together all of a sudden, right? Like right. He was made, that dumb Bears blog guy may not.
I have no idea if that's true at all. We knew by Christmas,
right?
I don't know, but he gets twice as much as the Flus.
More than the
more. The Flus is 6.
Oh, that's
6. And he gets they're paying $19 million to head coaches next year.
2 more.
Pretty good.
Is that the Flus had? I thought the Flus this was it.
Oh, no, okay, maybe. Oh, maybe this year, next year. I don't know. Whatever.
I think so.
As far as what the Bears are paying him, yeah.
Maybe they deferred a bunch of it.
He's where is he gonna? I forget where.
He had an interview somewhere, right?
He'll wind up somewhere. He's a good defensive coordinator.
Is.
What do I know?
Yeah, they were talking about Allen runs. He runs the Tampa 2, but not the way the Bears do. Like it's so basically the personnel. You don't have to overhaul your personnel if you bring him in to be your defensive coordinator, because they have a good defense. Yeah. You don't need to change it all.
When you really can't, like Edmonds is stuck for a little while. Not stuck. I mean, he's fine, but Tremaine Edmonds is. They can't cut him. They can't cut any of the defensive backs.
Yeah.
So all good. I don't know.
Yeah, the only time they had a big overhaul was when they brought Fox in. And he brought Fangio.
Yeah.
Right.
And they switched to the 3-4 for the first time.
Was that when
a bunch of their guys didn't fit?
Was that when they got Mac?
No, they didn't get Mac until Nagy was head coach.
Nagy.
Oh, yeah. Okay, makes sense. All right.
So that was that defense. That was the old. They switched from the old Mel Tucker defense to. And it was
Mel Tucker.
Bad. All those guys were old and bad, and it wasn't that big a deal. That was the time to change because you didn't have anything, so you just you needed a whole new defense angle. So
that's still such a crazy time in Bears history to think about. Like John Fox comes in and is pretty checked out, but like brings in at least one fairly important coordinator in Vic Fangio.
He had really good coordinators. He had.
With Adam Gase, right?
He had Adam Gase and Vic Fangio.
And like those two guys were coordinators in their previous spots. So like that was lateral moves they made. Like they could have had head coaching jobs. And
Gase did the Ben Johnson thing. He was up for head coaching jobs and he felt like he needed one more year. So he came to the Bears and then he got that really good year out of Jay and it upped his stock. And that's how he got the job in Miami.
Where he and Jay rejoined. Yep.
Vic had been the defensive coordinator for Harbaugh, right?
Yeah, in San Francisco.
And then Jim, is that right?
It was definitely
so.
It was definitely while Harbaugh was there. Maybe there was like some time when Chip Kelly was also head coach there, but I don't know.
No, but yes, I mean Fox was connected and guys liked him. He just, I mean, I think the Bear, he got there and that Bear job was more than he thought it was going to be, and he kind of like, okay. And then Pace didn't trust him and wouldn't tell him who he was going to draft.
Oh, when they drafted Mitch, right? Mitch. Yep.
Hey, where are we drafting? I got a phone call. There's no phone in here. It's like, if that's you fire your coach, then if you don't want to tell him who you're drafting, you probably need a new coach.
Right.
That whole thing was Ryan Pace is a fucking weirdo.
Yep.
That's so much better now.
Well, it is.
It is.
It still seems weird to me that people want to fire polls or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, because the next guy is going to be just so easy, apparently, to hire.
Right. Yeah.
The Brady thing, though, I mean, they hired Tom Telesco, took over as their GM last year, and was basically told, we're keeping Antonio Pierce. We didn't get to hire a coach. And basically he spent the whole year getting their salary cap fixed. You know, the Devontae Adams trade ended up being really good for the Raiders because the Jets had to take on a whole shitload of his money. And his reward for that was when Brady thought Ben Johnson wanted to bring his own guy, he just told Mark to fire him. He had the job for 1 year. He's like, what? Be funny if they just hire him back now. Actually, Tom, you want to come back? Because we didn't get Ben. So we needed a GM. You want to hire a coach for us? You know who that it sounds like they're going to hire?
The Raiders. Were they talking about McCarthy?
Pete.
Oh,
Carroll.
Yeah, right. I could see that.
I like Pete, but
yeah, about 8 weeks ago, I was at a bar and
73 years old.
Yeah, I sat down at the bar at Cody's, and the guy next to me just started talking to me about the Bears, which started talking about the Bears, and he was convinced that the best man for the Bears job was Pete Carroll.
Until he interviewed, and apparently it was a terrible interview.
Was he?
Was it?
That's the report that came out, I thought.
Huh. It's funny, they went into great detail in the end of the season press conference about how in the second round they were going to bring like all the business vice president stuff. We're going to get to sit on the interview and they'd be there in case anybody had any questions and all this stuff. And I'm sure all these people are like, what's great. We're going to get to meet all the coaches and whatever. And then on Monday afternoon, we hired a coach. What? We didn't get to interview any of them. Well, tough shit. We decided that was a dumb idea. Don't worry about it.
Right. Just make sure the only important person in the Bears front office talks to him.
Did you see the video of Ben making his arrival?
Yes, yeah. from the
that
loft
was funny. They all cheered, and then he goes, "Get back to work."
Yeah,
that's the first thing he said.
That
was funny. He seems he's got. I got to be honest. Just from granted, it's from a 28-second clip or however long it was. But he seems to have personality. He seems to that was kind of evidence of it. He does seem like a pretty intense dude too.
Yes, they said he was it on the St. Brown podcast with Caleb somewhere. Amon Ra was talking about how he's like, oh, he'll get on your ass. He has no problem. If you do something wrong, you're going to hear about it.
And then I like the exchange that they had about Amon Ra telling Ben Johnson that Caleb
Williams sucks.
Caleb sucks.
That was fun.
Oh, you don't want to go to the Bears. Caleb sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
Caleb's terrible. And then telling Caleb, Ben Johnson's all.
Yeah.
All
right.
You seem to have gotten it right. Let's go.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you never know, right? But you finally went out and found a quarterback, and it may have been a year late, but it may work. The timing may work out fine,
right?
Because although maybe you might have been able to hire Ben Johnson last year, maybe you didn't have to wait a year.
Yeah.
But you're pairing the smart young offensive coordinator. And then I get the Nagy comparisons are so fucking lazy. They're just so lazy. There's some guy
for sure.
Some guy called into Wild and Sylvie today. And he's like, "Well, they've all tried this before. You bring the hot coordinator in, like Eberflus or Nagy."
Matt Eberflus was a real hot coordinator.
We'll see.
Matt Nagy was running an offense that wasn't his offense, and Andy Reid barely ever let him call plays. I mean,
right.
This is the Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's not running Dan Campbell's offense.
This
is the Ben Johnson offense. Yep. You're getting that.
Exactly.
The closest thing to this is Wanstead, and that's not a great comparison. Granted, the way that it turned out, but that was the last time
for sure
got the hot shot.
Because back then he was like the guy to hire that everyone wanted. So
it's like there's no comparison between any other Bears pick and Caleb Williams, and there's no comparison between hiring Ben Johnson and Trustman or anyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the big Bear coaching what if was why they didn't hire Bruce Arians, but they hired Mark Trestman. Yeah, I know why they did. Because Phil Emery was a weirdo and Mark Trestman was a weirdo, and they were going to be weirdos together. They were.
That was the press conference thing, right? You had to get up and how would you handle a press conference? Was that
yeah.
It's funny. Everybody makes fun of that, but you know who else did that? Yeah. Remember when Theo made the Dale's fame search? They had to do real ones.
Wow. How would Dale Swaim have been the best of that bunch? Jesus. I guess in those first couple of years it didn't really matter, but
it came down to Dale and Mike Maddox, I think, right?
Is that right?
They the two.
I remember like Pete McCannon was a name in there too, I think.
Oh yeah.
I
mean, Dale might not have known it, but everybody else did. Dale was there to lose.
Right.
It was as soon as they got good, he was leaving. He didn't even make it to that. Ricky Renneria got the hey, we're finally kind of good year, and then he was gone too.
Yeah.
So
they made Joe Madden do the press conference thing, but he did it in front of his RV with all the other RV folks.
That's right. All right, gather around. We're going to practice. Right. We don't know if this guy can handle the media, so let's find out.
Billy Bob, ask your question.
Man.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey,
thank you, Andy.
Many of us have herpes.
You can't quote that. I'm not going to comment on anything.
No, I thought it generally sucked. I didn't think it was a specific suck. I thought it was like an all-encompassing type of suck. So, we're going to try and rectify that. But for right now, I'm going to be pretty pissed about it.
It's fitting. It's got to be done with one of the best games of all time. Just unbelievable. I mean, got to congratulate the Dolan family.
Sean, my podcast co-host Andy, you were his favorite player growing up.
Oh, thank you so much. Awesome.